So let's discuss about the exception hierarchy. As we have discussed in the earlier video that the exception is the Java class, right? So we should try to understand the exception hierarchy. So at the top we have the object class, as the object is the superclass of any class you create in the Java or any inbuilt class in the Java. Then there is a class called throwable. Throwable has a subclass called exception, and the exception could be a type of check exception, uncheck exception, built-in exception, or user-defined exception. I'm going to explain about all these things. That is, what is the check exception, what is uncheck exception, what is built-in exception, and what is user-defined exception. The another subclass of the throwable is the error, right? So let's try to understand or try to see the few built-in exception classes available in the Java. I'm going to explain all these built-in exception classes one by one. The first one is the arithmetic exception, which we have seen in our example. Here it is. So here the type of this exception is the arithmetic exception. I'm just putting this thing in the comment because as it is not required now. Okay. Another example of the exception is the array index out of bound exception. So let me demonstrate this thing. So assume that you have an that array in your program. Let me show you over here. Okay, let's declare the array like integer array, and I'm just initializing it with only 3 elements like this. Okay, so we have the array of 3 elements, and suppose if you will try to access any element which is out of the range of this array. Okay, here this is the array of only 3 elements, and if you will try to access any element like this, let's say if you try to access the fourth element with the index 3. Okay, the first element would have index 0, the second one would have 1, the third one would have. Okay, so now if you will try to access the element 3, at that time it will throw the exception. Let me show you. Let me run this program. And here you can see you have the exception, that is array index out of bound exception. Okay, why? Because that you are trying to access the index 3 which is out of bound. Okay, for the len 3. So len 3 array would be having only 3 index, that is a 0, 1 and 2. Right, so here you can see that the exception is generated from the line number 9. This is the example of array index out of bound exception. The first exception which we had studied, that was the arithmetic exception. Now this is another class of exception. Next is that class not found exception, right? So suppose that assume that you are using the class variable like this, like class is equal to, there is a method of the class called for name. Okay, and basically the purpose of this method would be to load any Java class in the memory, right? So I'm just writing any dummy name over here. Let me give the name dummy over here, and let me put the semicolon. Okay, now here what I supposed to do, here it says that it is not a statement, right? Let me see that why I'm getting this error. So class, okay, this class is a keyword, I cannot use this, right? So please make sure that don't do mistake that which I'm doing over here. Okay, so here I'm just giving the another variable name, that is my class. Okay, and now here I'm having error. What is the error? It says that unhandled exception. So guys, here if you see that this is the example of checked exception. Checked exception, as we have seen in the previous slide. Let me go back to the slide, and if you see that here I had mentioned that there are two type of exceptions. These are not subclasses, mind well, these are not subclasses, but these are the type of exceptions, like check exceptions. So right now whatever we are seeing here, that this is the example of the check exception. Okay, now why I'm seeing check exception? It says that when you write a program, and if you write this particular statement, that is class dot name, that is going to load the class which would be there in the like in your application. Okay, so here it says that this class may be there or it may not be there. Okay, and that's why here the compiler says that I must have to handle the exception if I want to use this statement. Now obviously you must be saying that here, then why we are not getting that kind of error, compilation error. We are not getting the compilation error because this is the example of on-check exception. Now let me clear the difference between this check exception and uncheck exception. So what is the difference here? That at compile time or compiler checks whether the program is handling the exception or not. Okay, so yeah, compiler checks whether the program is handling the exception. See, we are yet to understand that how, or we are yet to learn that how to handle the exception. But here it says that your program must have to handle this exception while writing a program. Whereas in this case, what is happening that compiler is not checking it, right? Compiler is giving the option that whether you want to handle it, otherwise you leave it as it is, right? So that is the difference between the check exception and uncheck exception. The check exception must be handled, okay, which I'm going to come to this case later on. Okay, right now I'm just putting this thing in the comment. Okay, this was the example of the class not found exception. Okay, let me go to the another one, that is file not found exception. Okay, suppose that if you declare the class like this, that is file, to handle the or to do the operation on the file in the Java. So file is equal to new file. Okay, and here suppose I'm giving any file name, let's say that abc.txt, and just putting the semicolon after that. And now suppose if you will try to read the file, okay, using the file reader, which is the Java class. So file reader is equal to new file reader, and here I can provide the object of the file. Okay, right? And now if you see the error over here, it says that it is unhandled exception. Okay, which is what? File not found exception. Okay, it may happen that at runtime this file may not be available in the system. Okay, that's why while writing a program you must have to handle this exception. Okay, so now you must have guessed that which kind of exception this would be. This is the check exception. Okay, because that compiler is asking to handle the exception. Okay, so this is another example of the check exception, right, which is the file not found exception. Okay, next one is that null pointer exception. Okay, let me show you. Suppose you are declaring a string like this, that string str is equal to null. Okay, and after that, suppose if you are trying to call any function on this of the string class, like that str dot, let's say uh, is empty. Okay, this will check whether the string is empty or not. Okay, and now if you will try to run this program, okay, it will throw the exception. Why it will throw the exception? Because that the string is not initialized by any string. It is pointing to the null variable or a null reference, I should say. Null reference, not a variable but null reference. Okay, and as the object is not initialized over here, the string object is not initialized. So that's why if the object is not initialized, then it is invalid to call the method, right? So this is going to become invalid, right? Because the reason is that object is not initialized. So if you will run the program and we'll see the output, you are going to get that exception, null pointer exception. Okay, which line is throwing? The line number 19, this one. Okay, so it should be clear that as the object is not initialized over here, right, that's why it is throwing the exception. Suppose if you will write like this, that ABC string str is equal to ABC. Now it is not going to throw any exception because that it is initialized. Okay, this is how we can initialize the string. This is one of the way. Another way could be like new string, like this also. Okay, so both are same thing, that the string would be initialized with some value. Okay, so now this is the perfect thing, right? Let me change it to null for a moment. Okay, another example is the number format exception. Okay, so this kind of exception that I'm going to show you with the help of the wrapper class integer. Suppose you have something that is to be some string that is to be converted into the integer. Okay, let me show you how. Suppose you have a string is equal to like 123. Okay, and if you want to convert the string into the integer variable like integer xyz is equal to, right? So how you can convert this string into the integer? So for that you have to use a wrapper class called integer, and you can call the method called parse int, and where you can provide this value, that is int value. Okay, right? So this is the correct way to convert the string value to the integer, right? And it will, suppose if you will write that as out and will try to print the value of xyz, it will print the correct value of 123. Let me show you. Let me run the program, and here you can see that we are getting the output that is 123. Okay, and this exception is the something else. Okay, so right now for a moment ignore this, right? Just concentrate on 123. Now suppose if that you are having invalid value like 123x, this is not the proper integer value. Okay, and now if you will try to convert it into integer, then let's see that what is going to happen. So I'm going to run this, and here you can see that we are getting the exception, that is a number format exception for the input string, that is 123, and it comes from the line number 15 from our program, right? So this is the example of the number format exception. String index out of bound exception. Okay, let me go back to the string, this one. Okay, and here suppose if I'm writing abc, and suppose if I will try to fetch the character from any location. So what is the method? The method is a character at. Okay, and suppose if I want to get it from the location 0, then it should print what? It should print the capital A. Okay, let me show you. Let me run it. Okay, let me correct this. I'm going to correct this thing. Let me put into the comment. So here you can see it is printing A, right? Because we want to print that whatever character is there at the location 0. But suppose if I will give, let's say, the character at 10, which is not a valid character place in the string, because the string has only 3 places, 0, 1, 2, right? So this is invalid, and now here this line is going to throw the exception. Here you can see this is the example of the string index out of bound exception. Okay, index 10 out of bound for the line 3, and that is generated from the line number 24, right over here. Okay,